In fact, there are more careers than ever in sports science. So if you have a passion for sports, then think about getting involved in STEM and improve everyone's game on and off the field. Get inspired at SheCanSTEM.com.
Events around the world may negatively impact our mental health. If you or a loved one is experiencing severe anxiety, depression, or even thoughts of suicide, then know that 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, is now available. To talk with a call specialist, call or text 988.
You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams, Saints, LSU, Tulane. We'll talk about the Pelicans. They get ready to go to camp as well. And, of course, to break it down for us, one of the best we have. Juan Kincaid, sports director over at Fox 8 Sports, is with us. Juan, welcome to the show. Good to see you, my friend.
Nice to be here again.
Good to have you here. And, of course, before we get started, golly, I was just telling you, you guys are killing it with the programming over at Fox 8 right now. We're doing a great job with us. Tell us about all the great shows that are happening.
Well, I mean, pick a day. We're doing something Saints related, and obviously Pelicans as well. And talking about all of our college football teams. You know, Monday we just got shows every day, Eric, at 10:35. So the time doesn't change. Yes. The programming does change a little bit, but it's all about football every day of the week, and it picks up really full speed ahead when in about 2 weeks when high school football starts. So it's about to be busy. Yeah, so you do like I do. Set your DVR recording device, and you never miss the show. It's always going to be recorded. There's always something there. Yeah, there's no doubt. We start this show on a sad note. One of our longtime colleagues, Ed Daniels, passed last week after complications from a massive heart attack. Both Juan and I have known Ed for years, worked with Ed for years, and again, we're all saddened by his passing. Again, not just those in the media, but again, across New Orleans in terms of again, what he did, not just for high school football, but what he did in terms of, again, sports reporting. You're a longtime colleague, again, on the television side. Your thoughts on Ed Daniels? It's amazingly tragic. You know, my condolences to his widow, Robin, and his entire family. This was so unexpected. It really, really was. I went to training camp in California, and that Tuesday, I sent Ed a text, because I think it was around his birthday. Yes. And his text back to me was, "Hey, I'll see you on Friday." Mm-hmm. And he didn't make it to Friday. Right. And it was just really, really, really sad. And you know, I've known Ed I've been here 23 years now. Yeah. And I've known him since day one. Yes. He was cordial to me from the start, always willing to lend an ear, lend a hand, give some advice. I mean, he was the king of definitely high school sports in this area, respected all over the state for what he did, but just a good person. You know, we'll have a joke with you. He would eat a chicken sandwich almost every day from Wendy's. I mean, there were just little quirky things about him, but he was always the consummate professional, and going to be missed a lot. Yeah, he will. There's no doubt about it. And of course,
you know, again, you mentioned high school football, what he's done, really again.
He set the bar.
He really did.
He really has.
He really did. And again, you look at, you know, again, the tributes that we saw on social media, again, what the TV stations did is they led their news in a lot of cases with the passing of a colleague and also a competitor, right? Yeah. It just goes to show you again what the man stood for. It seemed like every single tribute, again, it was almost the same stories over and over again. We all have those stories about Ed Daniels.
Well, you know, there's competition obviously between the stations and everything. We're all trying to get that story first and do it better than the competition. But a different level of that is that, you know, compassion, humanity, and realizing this is a guy that was friends of all of us.
Yes.
You know, and our friendship goes far beyond the competition we had on a daily basis with doing the stories with the Saints and Pelicans and high school football. You know, when I came to this market in 2001, every station had a high school football show, but none of them were as good as 26's. They took it to a different level, and it's because of Ed and his commitment to giving high school athletes a platform, and he did it better than anybody. I mean, we still, all of us still try to strive to be that good at that particular platform, and he set the bar. I mean, but not just that. I mean, Ed is just a really good person. And always willing to help you with anything you needed help. And he put competition aside most of the time because we were all friends. And so that's probably the part we're going to miss the most. Just the little running jokes he always had, talking about his St. Louis Cardinals. And, you know, and just making jokes, making a little inside. We all had little inside jokes with Ed. And so to me, that's what I'm going to miss the most.
Yeah, and of course, again, mentor to so many. Again, if you read the tribute, so many people that he's given a helping hand to get in this business. And also then the friendship. You know, Ed would call out of the, I know he did it with you as well, call out of the blue.
Absolutely.
You know, just to talk. And again, then you look at the phone, it's Ed. I mean, what's going on with Ed? And of course, just the kind of guy that Eddie D was.
He would just send me a text out of the blue. And a lot of times it was about his former colleague, Robert O'Shields, his photographer. We all had like a little triangle joke going, and I'm going to miss him. I really am, because he was always just a really good friend, and you know, Jim Henderson's my ultimate mentor because I came and worked up under him, but Ed's a very close second because I could always ask him questions, being an OG in the game of broadcasting. So.
Well, again, you know, we throw around the word great and legend a lot, especially in this business, right? But he is a legend, and if there's a Mount Rushmore of, again, those that have been reporting sports in our town, he's on it.
He's on it, definitely, and he's a standard bearer. You know, he taught a lot of us, and he will continue to teach a lot of us because a lot of things that he did before us, we're coming behind him, and we're trying to do it as good as he did. And we may not get there, but you know, we have a standard to meet now. Yeah, he'll be missed. Delgado, again, we're going to have some patches on their on their uniforms with Ed and a microphone. And again, I'm hopeful that, again, the Channel 26 will do something with this show and maybe name it after Ed Daniels. I'm sure they'll do something.
Okay.
I mean,
maybe, you know, again, I'm not saying that every team might be out there, but most high school teams will probably have some kind of tribute to Ed Daniels.
Well, I think it's because he's had such an impact on, especially in Southeast Louisiana, every high school. I don't think there's one high school in this area that can say that Ed Daniels hasn't touched their program in some way or fashion, you know, and not just in football, but obviously football is the biggest beast for him.
Well, that's the great thing, and again, talking about the coverage of high school sports across the board, and I don't do it as much as maybe I should. Ken Trahan obviously carries that baton on our station, but again, you've done it. The ability to be able to get out to those high school games on a Friday night, and you're seeing, again, some of those kids, again, it's their only time they'll ever be on television, right? Okay.
And they remember it, because people come up to you in this town, and like nothing makes you feel older than when someone comes up to you and says, "Man, you used to cover my high school games back when I played," and you realize you've been here for a long time. A lot of kids say that to Ed because he's covered over almost 40 years. The players he's covered, and he's covered their kids. It's amazing. I mean, it really is amazing when you think about it, the impact he's had on players. And again, a lot of times these players are getting on television one time, maybe twice, and they weren't even the primary subject of what the story was about. Maybe it's an offensive lineman blocking for the lead running back, and he's got that video to keep and say, you know what, Ed made that happen. And, you know, again, he set the standard for high school sports. I mean, he had his own basketball tournament in the summertime. I mean, he had the sports zone that runs year-round. That's something that no one in this market is doing and hasn't done. And we all have it seasonal, but he does it year-round because it's about the commitment he had to the kids. Yes, that's true. And to me, I appreciate that more than anything because a lot of kids get left out, unfortunately.
Ed Daniels, our colleague, our friend. passes at 67 years old. Please keep Ed and his family in your prayers. All right, let's talk some Saints.
Okay.
First of all, you're in California for again, the first few weeks of camp. You've been through a lot of these camps since you've been here since the early 2000s. Can you compare this camp to previous camps? Let's say not just with the Saints, but under Dennis Allen. It seems like he's grown as a coach.
We'll see.
Okay.
You know, for me, Dennis Allen's got to win football games.
Agreed.
Training camp does nothing for me. I've gotten to the point now, and Sean and I talk about this all the time. A lot of times we get caught up in what we see at training camp and saying, oh, this has got to translate over to the game. And the last couple of years, it has not. So for Dennis Allen, who has not been a winning coach in the NFL, you got to show me something.
Right.
All this conversation we're having during training camp, I don't want to hear it. I want to see the product on the field. I mean, I saw Colin Cowherd mention the other day that he's predicting Dennis Allen to be the first guy fired.
Right.
You know, it's going to be tough for them to win this year. That first 6-week stretch is a gauntlet.
It is tough.
It's a gauntlet.
Right.
It's going to be hard for them to win. And so if he doesn't win this year, they've got to make a decision over there on Airline Drive.
Agreed.
I mean, it's about winning football games. It's about making the playoffs. It's about increasing the visibility of this football team. I mean, I don't care what happens in training camp except for guys staying healthy.
Yes,
That's what I
of
want.
course.
I don't care what Dennis Allen says about the players. I want to see the actual product on the field being successful. To me, that would decide his fate with this football team, as it should.
Although I will say Colin Kaepernick's a little bit off, because if he really knew this organization, he'd realize that it would take a tremendous, just a total breakdown of everything for him to be fired at midseason. I don't think.
Well, he doesn't know the franchise.
Right.
They are not built that way,
Right,
they're not going to
allow him to finish it
For
out.
one, it doesn't make any sense to bring an interim coach in to bring. If a team starts 2-6 or 2-7, the season's pretty much lost in anyway. No interim coach is going to come in and take things over and turn things around. It is what it is. So I get it. Yeah, he doesn't know the franchise.
From that standpoint, again, you know, again, he can make all the predictions he wants. I just don't think that happens here. But with that said, I do think this is a defining year for Dennis Allen, because I don't think
it should be.
You can sell Dennis Allen to the fan base if it's you can't say a losing season if you don't get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, again, 9-8 last year. You again with 2 games better than the year before. I mean, you call that progress, but when you look at the division and you look how bad the teams are in the division, and you try to measure yourself up against that, that's the issue.
Yeah, it is. And for Dennis Allen, it is about making the playoffs and nothing else. You know, another 9-8 season where you just barely miss it is not going to cut it. They've got to make the playoffs. That's where things stand for them right now.
But again, when you talk about Dennis Allen and this season, again, being a defining season, to me, again, if it doesn't get done, I don't know how you sell this to season ticket holders. I don't know how you sell this to the fan base.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, and this is what I believe. I don't know if it's true or not, but I believe that Saints fans haven't been sold on Dennis Allen since he was hired, because many fans believe they needed to start fresh. That just because you're going from Sean Payton to Dennis Allen doesn't mean the success is going to transfer over. So there are a lot of fans that have not repurchased their tickets. I know certain fans that have said, you know what, I'm not putting the money in this football team until they decide to make some changes that show they want to go in the right direction. So I can't count how many times on 2 hands how many times I've been contacted by the Saints, hey, interested in buying the season tickets now. That never happened before. But it's happening
they had
now.
a waiting list.
Because they had a waiting list. But it's happening now because fans don't believe in this coaching staff, and they don't believe in where this team is going right now. So, yeah, he's got to win football games. He's got to get this team to the playoffs, I think, to save his job.
I think the defense on paper right now, based on what we've seen so far, looks like, again, they're going to be a defense that could be dominant if they stay healthy. Again, one of the keys to that, to me, is going to be Chase Young, his ability to stay healthy, because he looks like the real deal on the defensive line. And the defensive line looks like, again, like they got depth and they got some real talent on the defensive line. Now, can they stop the run? That's something that I don't know if they've proven yet. If they can stop the run, then at that point, the ability to rush the passer, I think they'll be able to turn that on with, again, the guys they have there. When you in camp, and it's hard to say because they were going against the Saints offensive line, but did you see flashes of, again, that maybe this could be a dominant defensive line?
Absolutely. And it begins with Chase Young.
Okay.
I mean, I remember after week 1 talking to Dennis Allen. Well, let me go back a little bit. A week before that, at the pre-draft press conference with Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis, they both said, well, we hope to have him by the end of training camp playing in a preseason game. A week into training camp, he's already getting full team reps because, and Dennis it seemed like he was shocked saying this, he's much further along than we anticipated him being. And he was playing so well, Eric, that you could not keep him off the field. He looks like a difference maker. He is a different kind of player on this defensive line, and you can see it.
Right.
I mean, we haven't mentioned Carl Granderson's name. He's been your leading sack guy since last season.
Right.
We haven't mentioned his name because there's been so much focus on Chase Young.
Yeah.
If he hasn't gotten a sack, he's been disruptive. They can't stop him on the offensive line. And I'm not talking about the Saints offense in training camp. I'm talking about going into the preseason games where he's been a difference-making, a disruptive football player on that Saints front four. And it's been interesting because they basically sometimes shifted Cam Jordan inside.
Inside now, yes.
And I'll put him to the outside. You've got Granderson on the field. You got Chapman. Brian Brzee is playing better.
Yes, he is.
So, yeah, I do think this can be a difference-making front four.
Yeah.
Bringing in Willie Gay Jr. Makes this a difference-making front seven.
Agreed.
And if you can get your secondary, they've got to figure out the safety position next to Tyrann Mathieu. But if you can get your secondary right, there's no reason why this is not a top 5 defense. And I usually don't want to go that high about it because you've only seen them against their team.
Sure.
But I've seen them in 2 preseason games against the other team's first-team offense. Granted, San Fran missing a lot of players, and that unit has been dominant.
Yeah.
And I don't expect anything different. I think they will lead this team to victories if the offense can supply anything.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in a moment. The safety position opposite Tyrann Mathieu, look, I think they've got good enough players that they can do that by committee. Again, I don't know if they have one guy that will be in that position. You know, I think they're going to go by down and distance. Abram is a nice box guy. Yeah. Howden can help you in the dime, you know, if necessary. If they keep Teamer, he's kind of an all-around guy. Harris is the same way. So they may not have that guy, but I think between the safeties they have, depending on how many they keep, right? I think they'll be able to rotate those guys in, and I think it'll make a difference there. Tyrann Mathieu has to be in a position where he can roam, though.
Yeah.
He's got a maker for you. But I agree. I think all 3 levels are improved. And look, now, if Chase Young does what we think Chase Young can do, based on what, again, he did in Washington, what we saw in the little bit of a glimpse in the Super Bowl as he kind of got himself together, they got to double team him.
Yeah.
So now Granderson is going to be freed up with single, basically a single blocker, and then on the inside as well with either Brzee or Cam Jordan or again maybe one of the other tackles. They'll be again single blocked as well. So you would hope that they'll be able to beat their guys, and you'll see more pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Brzee's going to take a step this year.
Me too.
I've already seen it. He looks like a beast, strong, can attack, get to the football. I think Cam Jordan will have a better year than last season, which was his worst season as a pro. Disappointing for him, and he understands that. But I think Chase Young is going to be the prize of that defensive front because he's chasing a new contract.
Yes, he is.
And he knows the only way he's going to get it is one, by staying healthy, and 2, by having a big season. Right. And then it puts the onus back on the Saints. If you want to continue the progress of this defense, do you re-sign that guy if he gives you 8.5, 10 sacks? They've let guys go before, but they haven't had a guy like this.
Right.
Outside of Cam Jordan in the last, 10 years?
Right. Well, again, you would think you would have the inside track, right?
You would think,
okay. Again, now you don't know what's going to happen in terms of, again, coaching staff, turnover, etc. But again, it was a little bit of a gamble, no doubt about it, for both sides.
And they got it right this time.
Right. And the same thing with Willie Gay. Okay, I don't know if they got it right on the offensive side. We'll get to that in a moment. But on the defensive side, giving these guys 1-year deal, prove it to me deals, again, they could end up, giving those 2 guys long-term deals if things work out. And those guys could be a big part of that defense going forward because this team is going to win. It's going to win with defense. Yeah. Let's go to the offense. Look, first we got to start with the offensive line. That's the biggest question mark of this upcoming season. And Trevor Penning sees the biggest question mark on the line. I went back, looked at the game a second time, and I hear the improvement. Yes, there was some improvement, but again, there was a different scheme in terms of the blocking scheme. Trevor Penning got a lot of help. First of all, again, he was the secondary blocker on a lot of plays where again Murrow would get the first block, and then he'd come back and clean up. Ruiz would get the first block. They would be swinging back. Penning would clean up. So again, one-on-one blocking. Again, still some issues in terms of pass blocking, but run blocking, he could be a mauler. You look at Lucas Patrick right now, who is your left guard, really a kind of a utility guy. You'd rather have him playing center than guard. He was okay. And then of course Fuaga with the back situation right now, with the back tightness. Hope that doesn't linger. My question is again, I don't think Ruiz is good enough to be able to cover what Penning's mistakes. I think Ruiz has to concentrate on what Ruiz has to do, right? Because I think there's a domino effect here. If Ruiz has got to help Penning, well then McCoy's got to help Ruiz, right? All the way down the line. So I still believe that waiver wire, making a trade at the end of camp, they've got to upgrade that offensive line because I haven't seen much out of the starters in the case of Penning, and then of course the backups in case of Udo, Lemieux, and some of those veterans they brought in as well.
Well, I know that Ali Udo played left tackle with Fuaga out, so I don't think Fuaga's situation is very serious. And I will say this about him: he's been the one guy that in training camp they've had the less to say to. Okay. They've had to give less guidance to because so he is.
You think he looks like the real deal?
Absolutely, absolutely. He has been. I mean, take away Eric McCoy.
Right.
I think he has been your best offensive lineman in training camp because, we talked about he's been a right tackle all his life in college, and now he's switching to the left.
Yes.
He said at the beginning it's no big deal. And he's made it look like it's no big deal in training camp. It's been seamless. He's been smooth. His teammates, Eric McCoy, called the kid a beast. He said he's got it. And other guys are saying that, you can tell when you watch a player play if they've actually got it, and everyone said the same thing, that he is special. I think on the other side, you've got Trevor Penning, and that's going to be a project. And the question becomes, how much do you want to invest in a guy to see if he can get to where you want him to get? This is Dennis Allen's player.
Right.
He's got a lot invested in him.
Yeah.
If he fails you, then he may be a big reason why you're getting fired in the season.
Right.
Because you couldn't protect the quarterback's front side. Now, having said that, from game 1 to game 2, there was less said about Penning.
Agreed.
And more.
But it was a different scheme.
And
though.
more. Well, listen, Eric. When you're talking about a player that's been struggling at a position, you're trying to find positives any way you can.
Yes.
And with him, they've seen some positives.
Okay.
Now, is he ready to start on day 1? I don't know. And I wouldn't put it past the Saints and say, you know what, let's see what else is out there on the market. There's likely going to be a right tackle on the market that's better than what you have in Penning, but if you don't play him, you're going to shatter his confidence. But at the end of the day, it's about winning football games, and they've got to win football games.
And keep the car upright.
And keep the car up. And also, they've got other positions they may have to address in free agency as well.
Right.
I mean, wide receiver, you're not sure what you have there.
I agree with that.
Are you going to step in and get something for safety? I don't think they'll address the safety position because they could have, when the kid came through and ended up signing with Atlanta. With Simmons, Justin Simmons,
Justin Simmons, right.
They could have addressed him with him. Now, maybe there's a money difference there.
I think there was. But he only signed a 1-year deal. So again,
but I don't think the Saints were looking at him for more than 1 year.
Right, I agree.
I don't think Dennis is looking at anybody for more than 1 year because he's got to save his this year and then hopefully have something for next year.
You mentioned wide receiver. 100% agree with you there. Who's the possession receivers? Is it Cedric Wilson on this team? Again, Bub Means hasn't really shown a lot because they got the injury. It looks like they've got 4 wide receivers on this team right now that can make it with A.T. Perry, Wilson, Rashid, and Olave. But to me, again, where's the physical receiver that can catch the ball? Who's going to back them up? I think that's one of the, as you mentioned, I think that's one of the positions they're going to have to really look at when the waiver wire comes through. I'm surprised they did not go after Renfro, who's still sitting out there as an unrestricted free agent.
Well, I will say this. The Saints, I'm trying to think back the last time they had this much speed at the receiver position. Olave, Shaheed, both burners. Mason Tipton, the rookie nobody talks about, he's been one of the best receivers in camp.
Practice squad guy, you think?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I think he might make this team as a 4th or 5th receiver if they keep 5 receivers. It's going to be the big question. But Cedric Wilson right now is your guy. He's a possession guy.
Right.
He's a veteran player.
Knows the system.
Knows the system. And A.T. Perry's probably your 4th guy. He's come on because he has not been doing anything in training camp. In fact, Dennis Allen, I talked to Dennis directly about this. He said, well, he's been fine. This is after week 1. I was like, well, Dennis, in terms of making his team, is fine good enough? He goes, no. In most things in life, fine is not good enough.
Right.
He says he got to start showing us something. From that point on, they must have heard the clipping.
Yeah.
He's been playing better. He was probably the best receiver in game 1, had a couple catches in game number 2. He's starting to show up on film, and that's what he needed to do. So I think he's locked himself into a wide receiver position.
Some guys are gamers too, right? He seems like a gamer.
Yeah, they are, but I think he's started to play better in training camp as well. But
good.
he's shown up in the games, which is what counts the most.
Right.
But I still think they need a veteran guy that can sit in the holes,
Yes.
between the line and the linebackers,
Yep.
catch balls. Another thing, they don't get yak yards. You know, that's something that Deuce McAllister and I talked about. They've got to get better at that. So there's still some questions, and it's going to be interesting when they cut down to the 53-man roster on Tuesday. Which players are kept, and then which players are let go because you want to jump into free agency and see what's out there to replace, or you already know something's out there to be replaced.
Right. Remember, 16-man practice squad now with 6 veterans that can be on that practice squad. So again, you may see some veterans.
Well, you know, your kicker is going to be on there, likely. Charlie Smith, the kid from Europe. I mean, he's likely to be because they don't count as a practice squad player.
That's right. That's right. So they'll get a free pass.
He's kicking 65-yarders.
Right.
Jesus.
And what did Dennis say? And you saw him in camp. His issue has really been between.
But that's been him and Groupie. Right? Him and Groupie have had problems with consistency between
inside 40,
inside 50, 45, 40, which is what most of your kicks are going to be.
Yes.
So it's been a consistency issue for both of those players. Right. And that, to me, Charlie Smith is a nice story, but if I'm an NFL coach that I'm trying to win and get to the playoffs this year, am I trusting a guy that's never kicked at all?
Right.
Well, am I trusting him to get me through the promised land with his leg at a crucial moment? I don't know.
Well, they did that last year, right, with Groupie and Henley?
Yeah.
I mean, they brought in 2 guys that you're like, wait.
Yeah, but the difference is those 2 guys have kicked in games.
True.
Charlie Smith has not done anything. Has done nothing at all.
Football, right.
So you don't know how he's going to respond once the lights go on and the crowd's screaming at him and he's playing an away game. I agree.
Hey, Ball and Henley, who do you like there in that competition for punter?
I've seen good things from both of them.
Okay.
Henley, I think he has better placement.
Right.
And the way things are now with special teams, it's about making these teams drive long fields.
Yes.
So I'm going to say Henley. I like him a little bit more, but you know, I haven't seen a kind of a breakout from either guy so far.
Let's talk about the running back position. It again, look, they had the 95-yard drive last week. That comes on the heels of them not being able to move the ball against Arizona and not being able to move the ball on the first drive. And then they kind of said, okay, we can't beat this team or score on this team with our basic offense. We have to start pulling some stuff out of the playbook. And again, what was discouraging about that is San Francisco didn't have their stars. All their stars were on the sidelines. You were looking at second team, third team guys. Now look, they scored, they went down. Again, it's good for their psyche. But when you look at the running back position right now, obviously Alvin Kamara. Looks like we're going to get a heavy dose of Taysom Hill, maybe as that number 2 running back, because he will be still play as jack of all trades. But he looked pretty good out of the running back, the running back and the fullback position, halfback and fullback position.
I think Taysom's going to be used differently this year. I don't think he's the number 2. I think Jamal Williams is your solid number 2. Yeah, okay. I do. And I thought he ran well against San Francisco. Listen, and Deuce and I had this conversation a couple nights ago. Yes, San Francisco had a lot of their players on both offense and defense not playing, but you still have to execute against the defense you're playing. And I thought the Saints did a really nice job without their number 1 running back playing in Alvin Kamara, sitting out that game. I thought they did a nice job with the blocking scheme, did a nice job opening up holes. And Taysom Hill had a 12-yard run, and he looked like a natural running back running it. That tells me the offensive line is getting a push, and they're getting holes open for these guys to run through. And that's all you can ask, no matter which defensive line you're going against, 1, 2, or 3 on the opposing team. I want to see this team execute, because it builds confidence, and maybe, you know, when you get into a regular season game against Carolina, that confidence is built so much that you say, I did it then, I can do it now, and the offense continues to push forward with the running game. But this team is going to be led by Alvin Kamara.
Yes.
What kind of season can he have? He needs a bounce back year because, again, he, like Chase Young, wants a new contract.
Yes.
And this will be his last big contract he gets.
Yeah, I would agree. Tight end, Juan Johnson comes back. That's a plus. Yeah. Moreau. Is Holker the 3rd tight end?
I think so. Foster Moreau's number 2, Holker's number 3. Holker's carrying a little bit of an injury, but he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I want to see what Juwan Johnson is. Mentally, talking to him last night, he said he's 100% ready to go physically. Yeah. Mentally, he's ready to go. He's waiting on the Saints medical staff to kind of clear him as 100%, and he's ready to go. The tight end position is going to be very important this year.
I agree.
If you are lacking at the receiver position, which the Saints are, then you've got to supplement that with a good tight end situation.
Right.
And Juwan Johnson, who is more of a kind of a hybrid tight end who can get down the field but also can catch in space, he has to have a big year. When I say big year, between 40 and 50 catches, get him into the end zone. And I think Darren Halker can be can contribute to as well this year as well.
Right.
So I think tight end is an important position this year because they lack a wide receiver.
Well, all the pass catchers are going to have to be able to catch the ball in space.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this offense is predicated on getting guys to the second level, allowing them to again get yards after catch. But that means again they're going up against linebackers and safeties on that second level who are going to be headhunting. So again, you know, we'll see again how much physicality these pass catchers have going forward. All right. As we wrap up with the Saints, you know, we mentioned defining year for Dennis Allen here. Atlanta looks like they're all in. Again, they're going out again. You know, they got Judon. You mentioned Simmons. They picked him up. They go out to get Cousins. You know, we'll see what Tampa is. Carolina should be somewhat improved. Where's this team in the pecking order of the NFC South?
I'm going to say third.
Okay.
I really think they're better than Carolina, who I think will come on eventually. But I think they're behind Tampa Bay, which I think is the second best team until we can prove that we're better than them.
Right.
And I think Atlanta is the class of the division because I think they've done more in the offseason. They weren't a bad team last year.
No, they weren't.
But they've addressed their quarterback issue, which was the biggest problem they had. And they've gotten themselves a backup quarterback in Michael Penix, who can be really good. We'll see. Their defense is pretty solid. I think Atlanta's a team everyone's chasing this year. But I don't think they're that much of a head and shoulders above everyone. I think it's still going to be a division that's up for grabs for everyone.
Yes.
How you do at home, win the games at home, and then can you steal one on the road? So I think it'll be interesting.
So the Super Bowl that'll be coming from the Superdome that'll be televised on Fox 8 will not have the Saints in the Super Bowl.
I will be shocked if it, I mean, it'd be great if they are.
Right.
But I just think this team is in a transition right now, which is not a good thing for Dennis Allen. I think they're going to struggle to get wins. I think their offense is going to struggle to score points.
Yes.
I think everyone has to be on every game. And then Derek Carr, he can't win. He's not going to be able to win games by himself most times. He needs the guys around him to play well. So can they get into the playoffs? If things fall right in the division, yes. After that, win a game here and there, it's all a crapshoot.
Last question about the Saints before we go to break and hear from our underwriters. You were in California for camp. Look, I've always been one that have been big, especially again with the money put in from the state and the tax dollars that went into the Saints facility, that the Saints should practice and Saints should hold that training camp here in New Orleans. I've changed that. You know, again, the climate is changing. You know, the hot days, the rainy, you know, the rain they have to deal with. You know, possible again, tropical events, etc. The amount of work they got done in California, the weather, etc. The proximity of other teams to be able to have joint practices. I would not be opposed if they would take camp out to California. I know a lot of media members had to sit out there for a month. Maybe they don't want that. Maybe the team doesn't want that.
Let me tell you something, Eric.
But
I don't know any media member that was complaining about being in 58-degree temperatures in the morning.
There you go. So what are your thoughts? Should they go back?
Well, you know, it's funny because I was talking to Mickey Loomis off to the side, and we were talking about some people make the mistake of associating winning season versus should we go out of town for camp.
Understood.
And he says people shouldn't do that.
No, right.
If they're back here in New Orleans for training camp this year, the entire first week is rained out. Right. Because it rained every day. Every day. And they were inside. They can't get as much work done on the inside. They can get work done, but you got to divide it up and everything.
And then while you were sitting in the 58-degree weather, it was almost 100 degrees oppressive heat for 2 straight
Now,
weeks.
having said that, Eric, though, we talked about them going out there, and the reason why, because you don't have as many soft tissue injuries. But I'm telling you, they had as many injuries out there as they did in what they have in New Orleans. And Deuce and I were talking about that, and he goes, Juan, they have to properly hydrate their bodies.
They fool themselves, right?
Because the temperatures fool you. They will fool you. You have to continue to hydrate, and a lot of players weren't doing it properly. I would like to see them continue going out of town. I think it's good for the team. Me too. But I think they can find the California weather in other places. I think they can go to the mountains of Tennessee. I think they can go to the mountains of North Carolina. I mean, I can think of 3 or 4 places they could go to in North Carolina where you have the exact same temperature as in California, and it's probably a lot less expensive, and it's a closer drive.
So the proximity of NFL teams to practice against. So you don't want to practice against Carolina.
Well, I mean, you could.
Yeah, but they're in your division, so you really don't want to.
Yeah, but you're being vanilla anyway. You know, I don't think you worry about that because, I mean, don't they play San Francisco this year?
I don't think so.
Maybe not. No. Okay. Well, I mean, there are teams that are practicing up and down. You got Carolina, you got Atlanta practicing in probably, I think, in Greenville, South Carolina, something like that. But there are teams all over practicing. And they would fly to San Francisco, so they could fly to Baltimore, or they could fly to D.C., or they could fly down to Florida.
And if you're doing, and basically you put that around a preseason game. So again, if you're going to do that, you're probably going to be working that week. If you're going to be in Baltimore, you're going to be in
exactly. You're going to be there a couple of days. Exactly. So I think going out of town has been good for this team.
Right.
I like it, obviously, and I think it brings the team closer together. Get a lot of work done, and the temperatures are conducive to practice.
And that's the thing.
And that's the biggest thing.
That's the thing you're looking for. Again, you want to be able to get as much work as you get done. They got a lot of work done. Hopefully that translates into wins this season.
We hope so.
Juan Kincaid, sports director at Fox 8 Sports, is our guest. I'm Eric Asher. I'm your host. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. You'll hear from our underwriters. We come back. We'll talk LSU, Tulane, and Pelicans. Stay tuned.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Juan Kincaid is our guest. Juan, let's talk some LSU football. 12th in the coaches poll, 13th in the AP poll. They recently had a scrimmage in which Brian Kelly kind of caught his quarterback out a little bit about, again, having to deal with pressure, which really kind of surprised me, because he's been a gunslinger when he's had a chance to get into games, and you know, he can ad-lib, etc. From what we understand, the defensive line with that prowler package putting a lot of pressure on him during camp. Talk about Nussmeier as a quarterback. You think he's ready to make the next step to being a top quarterback in the SEC and in college football? Because he's filling big shoes in Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
We will see, because, you know, there was no pressure on him last year because Jaden Daniels was your Heisman Trophy winner, and when Nussmeier came into the game, it was spot-up, mop-up duty. And he did play well, well in the bowl game, kind of gave us a glimpse of what he could be for this season. But now everything's on him. He's the undisputed #1 guy on this team, so how does he handle the pressure? He hasn't been the #1 guy since he came out of high school. So it's different now. And so there's going to be pressure on him to be good and to be really, really good. If this team wants to get into that college football playoff, it has to begin with Garrett Nussmeier playing really good football against some really good teams and a very tough schedule this year.
Yeah, you know, they're almost opposite of the Saints. You know, the Saints, you look at the defense, you say the defense is going to carry the day there. It looks like the offense will carry the day with LSU because
it'll have to.
Well, they have probably the best offensive line on paper in college football. I think they got a nice stable of backs. I think Caleb Jackson is going to really break out this year. I think when you look at their wide receiving core, they're very deep there. Tight end, they're deep there.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many questions on the offense except what will Nussmeier do as a starting quarterback?
Yeah, well, you know, you lose 2 players to the draft in the wide receiver position.
Yes.
They were very, very good.
Right.
And you replace them with like a guy like Kyron Lacey and some other players around him. Their offense should not have a problem.
Right.
They've got a stable of running backs, Mason Taylor leading the tight end group there, good receivers, a fantastic offensive line. Yes. So you've got all these ingredients around you. The quarterback damn well better be pretty good.
Right.
You have no excuses here. You can't say, well, we don't have the weapons. Right. You got all that. So it really does come back to Nussmeier. How good can you be this season when we've given you the keys to the car, we've given you all the tools to work with? Should not be a problem. I don't think anybody's going into this season thinking LSU's going to have a problem scoring points. No. Is LSU going to be able to stop teams from scoring points?
Which has been the issue at LSU for the last few years, was one of the reasons why they brought Blake Baker in. They bring Corey Raymond back. Now look, that 2025 class looks like a foundational class for a national championship type run, right? But this year, there's still a lot of question marks. I've heard, again, so many different takes on what's going on with the defense. First of all, listen, the defensive line is looking pretty good. The question mark there is always going to be about, again, the ability to be able to stop the run, defensive tackle, what's going to happen there. They look like the linebackers are set. How they utilize Harold Perkins is going to be the big key for them there, right? And when you the front seven.
Listen, the problem with Harold Perkins was he had a head coach that tried to change what he does best.
Amen.
Get out of the way and let the kid play. Because he showed you as a true freshman, he is special.
Yes.
One of the most special linebackers in the country. And you tried to change what you wanted to do with him in his sophomore season. And now you're taking a step back and say, you know what? We'll just get out of your way. Go
See
play.
ball, get ball.
Go play.
Right.
Exactly. Be the top 20 pick, future pick in the NFL draft that you will likely be. And so your defense is built around him and Penn at linebacker. You're hoping you can get something from your front set, for your front four, and get a rush. And then you just pray to God that you have enough that's better than what you had last year in that secondary. Because DBU is not DBU anymore. They are a team that has struggled to fill that position, which is shocking because for 20 years, LSU always had quality secondary players, and now they don't. And they're trying to rebuild that and get better at that unit. But that to me, that's where the biggest question mark is with this team. Can they cover in the back end and help that front seven out?
Right. Well, Juan, I've heard conflicting reports. Some reports from reporters that have seen what's going on with the LSU practices. They said again that P.J. Woodland's stepping up, Ashton Stamp stepping up at the cornerback position. That maybe Sage Ryan could move back to safety. Again, Spears is a young player that that's a freshman that's going to that is playing well for them in the defensive backfield. And then I read or I watch other reporters that are saying they're getting torched. They're getting torched by the secondary. They can't cover anyone. So again, I have not seen it with my own eyes, so I don't know one way or the other. But I do know if this secondary is not up to the challenge, they're not going to win. They're not going to be a top 12 team in the country. They're not going to be a top team in the SEC because again, you have to play good defense to win in the SEC.
But here's the thing, Eric, and I liken this to the Saints. You have to take everything you see in practice with a grain of salt.
Agreed.
Because they're going against their teammates. And they know what the play calls are. It's like with the Saints, we would get so caught up in watching that defense. Oh man, that team looks fantastic. Or this offense looks great. They're going against their own team. They know the plays.
Agreed.
Give me them against someone they don't know and see how they do. And to me, that's where you'll find out. You'll know within the first couple games, is this secondary better? You'll know whether it's better or not because they're going against a different opponent. How do they match up one-on-one against different receivers that they don't know where they're going? To me, that's when you'll find out.
When you look at this team, Oklahoma, Texas coming in, making the SEC that much stronger, where do you think they are in the pecking order of the SEC?
Well, I think they're probably the 5th best team in the SEC.
I think they were
obviously behind Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss. Who am I missing? Ole Miss. I'm missing somebody in there, but I had them like the 5th best team. Maybe A&M. I just think there's so much unknown with how Nussmeier's going to handle being the number 1 guy at quarterback. He has all the tools. No one's questioning that. But having all the tools is one thing. Putting it on display on game day and being everything that everyone expects you to be is a different thing. He hasn't been asked to be that yet. The bowl game, I'm putting that to the side. There was no pressure in that game. We were just getting our first looks at him. So I want to see how well they do with him at quarterback, and then maybe my opinion will change about them being the 5th best team in the SEC. Maybe they're better than Texas. You don't know. Maybe they're better than Ole Miss, but those, maybe they're better than Alabama. Alabama without Nick Saban's different. You may have some of the same players, but without Nick Saban, it's different because the expectation from Nick Saban is a lot different than what it is from another coach coming in there. So it'll be interesting to see where Bama falls this year.
I think the other team you think about was Georgia.
Well, yeah, of course, Georgia.
Georgia, of course, the best team in the nation right now.
Of course,
I think they're good enough. The question to me,
good enough for what?
Good enough to be in the top 12. Good enough to get to the playoffs. Okay. I think they're good, but again, I think
it's going to take 10 wins to do that, Eric. Can they get 10 wins in the SEC?
The SEC is going to be difficult. There's no doubt about it. But again, you get more SEC teams in the playoff. Then again, I think they'll be one of the top teams in terms of putting teams in the playoffs going forward. But I think it really comes down to, again, the defense's ability to stop the run. Okay, first and foremost.
Do you know they've given up over 2,000 yards the last 2 seasons?
It's crazy. It's just
Glenn Dorsey would.
It's so un-LSU-like.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous how bad that defensive front four has been. I mean, we talk about the secondary, and they obviously help each other. But, man, if you can't stop the run at a school that's been known for decades as being able to stop the run, if you can't stop that, then you're not going to win a football game. I don't care how good the secondary is. You can't win football games, not in the SEC where teams still believe that run first, pass second.
And it's not just about first team, it's about the depth also that they have right now. So we'll see how that plays out. Let's go to Tulane.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
How many SEC teams do you think get into the top 12?
I think at least 5. At least 5.
At least 5.
At least 5. I think at least 5 will get there because I think the Big Ten and the SEC will dominate again in terms of invitations into the top 12. The question is again as we get ready to go to Tulane is again can Tulane take that step this year and get into that top 12?
It's going to be tough.
You know, it's going to be difficult. Look, on paper they look like they're still a pretty good team. The quarterback situation is a question, only because, again...
To me, that's a concern.
Yeah, is it a concern?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's a concern because if you got 3 guys, you don't have 1 guy. You know, Kai Horton should have been the guy stepping in the quarterback's shoes this year. He's the one guy that has the most college experience. But obviously you don't believe that much in Kai Horton because you go out into the portal and bring Ty Thompson in. Ty Thompson and Kai Horton have been sharing reps at number 1 for the first 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden they got a new guy,
Darian
Mensah, who's now considered to be their equal. I'm just like, wait a minute. How is this guy who hasn't been taking reps with the ones for the first 3 weeks all of a sudden the equal of the first 2 guys? Well, it tells me that he hasn't liked what he's been seeing from the first 2 guys. So all of a sudden you've got a 3-headed horse here going into the Southeastern game where all 3 guys could play. And I'm just like...
That's the crazy part about this is, again, as you mentioned, it was a 2-horse race, right?
Yeah.
And now again, Mensah's in there. And again, when your coach says a guy has an it factor, you better pay attention because, again, obviously that's a guy that he's really looking at as a possibility of again, either starting or playing for him. And, again, the reporters I've spoken to that have been at practice talk about his ability to make something out of nothing. Again, the accuracy. You know, obviously he's got a strong arm as well, but, again, leadership also is another thing that has been talked about. And he said that, that he's kind of trying to follow in the footsteps of Michael Pratt. And one of the big things that he has really trying to hone in on is his leadership qualities, leadership skills, and again, maybe that's making a difference with this Green Wave right now.
Well, you know, talking to my colleague Garland Gillen yesterday, because he covered practice. The last 2 times he's covered their practice, he said the body language of Kai Horton has not been great. Maybe he's feeling the pressure of thinking, well, man, I was supposed to pick up where the guy last year left off, Michael Pratt. And it's not happening. Now I'm feeling the pressure because 2 other guys are being looked at and considered for the job that I feel like I should have. You know, I just think I think they've got a great running back there. I think the running game.
Guy Hughes is really
he's fantastic. I think they're
across the board. Shotty
It's a solid team,
and also Arnold Barnes. I think that they have 3 really good running backs.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, they've addressed the receiver position with 2 transfers coming in, Shaz Preston and the kid from
Merrill Williams.
Yeah, Merrill Williams. They got 2 good receivers, got a decent tight end as well.
Bauman.
Yeah, I think their offensive line is good enough.
And they brought in some transfers there.
To help out.
Really helped out there.
To me, it comes back to the quarterback position. And, man, I just don't feel good about going into a regular season game and not knowing who my best quarterback is. And I know there's some teams that play 2 quarterbacks, but, again, if you don't have that one solid guy where everyone else can look and say, that's our leader right there, that to me, that's a problem.
Again, it'll be interesting to see again what happens. Look, the 29th is the first game against Southeastern. The fact that Coach Summerall said yesterday that again that I may play all 3.
Yeah, and listen, his days at Troy, while they were fantastic, they weren't known for their offense. They were known because their defense was ridiculous, which I think it will be at Tulane. So he's not known for having high-powered offenses. He's known for having offenses that can score enough points to win, and the defense takes care of everything else. So how does that translate over here to Tulane?
Well, look, they got the skill position players. You can see it again. You mentioned tight end, running back, wide receiver. The question is quarterback. Looks like the offensive line on paper looks like again in the American Athletic Conference they'll be able to compete. But you mentioned it's the defensive side of the ball again. And right now, linebacker they look like they're pretty good. Even with Machado out. Okay. The defensive line looks pretty stout for them right now. And there's some changeover in the secondary. But again, the key for them is going to be on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, I think Tyler Grubbs is a stud.
Agreed.
I believe that Machado is a good player. I think their linebackers are good.
Right.
There's going to be questions and marks in the secondary. They've got some guys that come in on a transfer, but it's a young group back
Huntington's coming in from the transfer portal from Monroe, UL Monroe, and supposedly again a guy that he's been injured, but they're counting on him to be a real big pass rusher for them.
So I mean, I think because John Sumrall is a defensive-minded coach and he's always gotten the best out of his defensive players, I think they'll be fine on defense. I think they'll get after the passer. I think the same way he approached things as Troy will be the same way he approaches it here, with getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, make him make mistakes, and then hopefully capitalize on the back end. I think defensively they're going to be fine. I think question for me comes down: can they score enough points this year with the offense that has that's very indecisive at the quarterback position right now? To me, that's where the big issue is.
Picked third in the American Athletic Conference. Can they win the conference?
Absolutely. I mean, I think they'll beat Kansas State. I really do. People are picking that's one of their two losses along with Oklahoma. Oklahoma will be tough, but Oklahoma's not the Oklahoma when I used to cover them back 20 years ago. It's a better team, but they're not a giant killer. They're not going to go through the SEC this year and dominate teams yet. They've got to rebuild that program, but I think they'll be competitive against OU, but I think they'll beat Kansas State because Kansas State, they beat them before. I think they'll beat Kansas State. I think they'll beat everybody in their conference, and the Memphis game will be tough, but their biggest conference games are at home. And so if you can take care of home field, you can get into that top 12. But I think you have to win the conference, obviously, and win the conference championship game to get in that top 12 because, again, they're not going to look at Tulane as, they deserve to be here. They got to make everybody say they have to be in it.
Memphis picked first in the American Athletic Conference. Texas San Antonio picked second. Tulane picked third. All right. Real big things happening with the New Orleans Pelicans, and also again with Fox 8 and Gray Television. Talk a little bit about again the new contract and the new partnership between the Pelicans and the Gray Television.
Well, the contract isn't completed yet. I'll just say that, but I know there's a love thing here between the two, Gray Network and the Pelicans. You look back to last year, we aired 10 games on our network. Some were on Fox 8, the others were on Bounce TV, and it was extremely successful. So we fast forward to now, and we see a Pelicans franchise that basically have dropped their contract with their previous media company, and now it's open bidding for them. And I know that our company is talking about things and trying to make something happen, but nothing's been decided as of yet. So we are hopeful that something gets worked out because we love that partnership. We really do. And I love basketball. I love NBA basketball. I love covering the Pelicans. And I think we'd be getting the Pelicans if it's happening at the right time when they're on the uptick in this franchise.
So a little premature to say Gray Television is going to be putting together a sports network. I know that was talked about.
It's premature until someone tells me different. I haven't been told anything different.
That's exciting though, right?
Absolutely. It's an exciting
have
prospect.
a regional network that again is going to be really kind of based out of New Orleans.
I've been saying this since the Pelicans came here in 2003. Well, it was the Hornets back then. That franchise for some reason has alienated half of its fan base. One year you could get them on the North Shore, but not on the South Shore. Then after that you can get them on the South Shore, not on the North Shore. This will allow them to be broadcast throughout the Gulf South.
The Gulf South.
You're talking about 3-4 million viewers. And it would be a coup for them. It'd be great for Gray Communications if it happens. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Well, fingers crossed right here as well. Let's talk a little bit about Zion Williamson, who is at 281 pounds. Says that he's going to be down to 272 by the time the season starts. He played at Duke.
He sounds like a professional that's listening to his body.
Doesn't he really? A guy that's played over 300 pounds. Do you think he's taking the next step in terms of maturity?
Absolutely.
It sure looks like it.
Absolutely. I think C.J. McCollum is a big part of that. The conversations he's had with Zion. And then, as you grow in this league, and you grow up in this league, you become smarter. You recognize there are goals you're trying to meet. And one of them is get to the playoffs, play in playoff games, have success, and he wants to get there. What he had been doing up to that point hasn't been working. His way has not worked. So he's got to start opening his ears and opening his mind and being receptive to new ideas, new ways of going about things, ways of training, taking care of your body, eating the right things, being a professional. And I think he's gotten to that point now because what he did before hasn't worked. Now, is this team going to be better than last year? I don't know. We'll see. Boy, I sure wish we had a center.
Well, that's you know what? that is the only thing. That's the missing link for this team right now. It really is. And I get that David Griffin and others keep talking about, again, we're going to be positionless and
that's BS.
And we've got Tice, but I'm sorry. I thought Oklahoma City laid it out for you last year. You have to have a center in the playoffs in order to advance.
Absolutely.
Okay, and you might be able to get away with positionless basketball during the year. You might be able to get away with again power forwards playing center for you. But when it gets down to
the
a
game
half-court
slows
game,
down.
You need a center.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, and it is the biggest void on this team right now. And the problem is, without a market for Brandon Ingram, again, how do you fill that void? How do you bring that in? Because you just signed Javonte Green to a one-year deal. He's the last guy on your roster. You have a full 15-man roster now. So how do you get that done without having to trade Brandon Ingram?
I don't think you can right now. I don't think there's a market for Brandon out there. Not at the money that he wants to make. I just don't know how they're going to do it. I think they're a good basketball team, really do. I think they're limited on what they can do in terms of the big men. I like Tice. I think he's a good player.
I think so. He played well in the Olympics. He showed a lot.
Yeah, but if you look at where this team has lacked last couple of years, even with Jonas Valanciunas in there, they don't have a rim protector. They struggle down low.
Which is why they drafted Messi, but he's a project.
He's a project. He may get you the rebounds and everything. He's not going to be on the court full time. So
he needs to be in Birmingham getting reps. Okay.
Well, he probably does because he's not a guy that's played a lot of basketball.
No, he hasn't. That's the thing. And look, he really advanced quickly at Baylor. Okay, that's one reason why they took the chance on him. Okay, but at the same time, they've got to get him in the game. He's got to get again NBA type reps. If he gets that, then he's going to progress quickly. Which means again you're going to be counting on Makovich and Tice.
Although Makovich, I like his game. I really do. He is. He's not a rookie.
No.
He's a guy that's played some basketball.
He played in Europe.
He does play some basketball, and he has a European game, and he's skillful. Again, he's not a rim protector, but I think that this team will continue to see what's out there for them as far as addressing the big man position with guys they have on the roster right now. You do. You're selling yourself short if you don't.
And maybe Jordan Hawkins is a guy you're dangling out there.
Although I would love to see that. I don't want to see him get rid of Jordan because I think this team needs as much three-point shooting as they can get. I'd just like to see him get more opportunity this year.
Right. Interesting to see how the starting lineup's going to look. Look, does C.J. McCollum go to the bench now? I mean, do you keep Herb Jones out of the starting lineup? You need somebody.
I think you've got Murray, Jones, B.I., Zion,
Tice.
And Tice. And I think you strengthen your bench by putting CJ on there.
Yeah, I agree.
I would like to think that CJ would say, you know what, I'm a professional, I'm going to make this second team right now. Now, the question is, when it's crunch time, who's on the floor?
Well, again, you throw it out there.
And then that's different. That's where CJ's on the floor.
That's when CJ's on the floor.
Exactly. And so CJ may end up becoming your sixth man of the year if he plays off the bench like he does as a starter. And, I love the fact they've got a natural point guard now. Somebody that can score and also get guys involved.
He's going to make a difference.
He will make a difference.
Especially in crunch time.
Yeah.
Which is where they suffered last year.
But you know what the plateau is. The baseline is you got to get to 50 wins.
Yes.
Because anything less than that, and you're in the play-in tournament. And it would be nice to see this team get out of the play-in tournament for once.
Everybody in the West got better.
They did.
Everybody got
better. They did.
So you got to again.
Except Golden State.
Right. Exactly. But
they've had their turn.
Right. They've had their turn, no doubt. And maybe Golden State might be looking at Brandon Ingram before it's all said and done.
Maybe so. I mean, because they lost Klay Thompson.
Right. They brought Buddy Hield, but maybe they might be looking there. Again, I don't really like their bigs, but again, maybe we'll see how it works. That's another team that plays power forwards at the center position,
exactly.
no doubt. Juan, thanks again for your time. Certainly appreciate it. And again, the shows at Fox 8, as I said before, set the DVR every night because, again, great shows every night, again, when you're talking about sports and the Saints. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. There's a QR code on your screen right now that'll take you to WLAE-TV YouTube page, website, of course, our YouTube page. Remember, plenty of ways to catch our program now between WLAE-TV, The Deuce, also, again, Pelican Sports Television. Set your DVR, as I mentioned, each and every day and on the radio show, and you'll never miss the show. Speaking of the radio show, 106.1 The Ticket. I'm on 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com, the iHeartRadio app, TuneIn Radio app. 106.1 The Ticket now has their own app. Also, again, you can check us out again on 106.1 The Ticket, again, with Ken Trahan and also Jude Young with All Access. And of course, we got a great lineup of Fox Sports as well. Again, I want to thank the underwriters who make this show possible. We appreciate each and every one of them. Please support our underwriters and also the staff here at WLAE-TV. Again, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Ali Chacon, Danielle Wick, and also our director, William Hill. For Juan Kincaid, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.
Having aired in the U.S. and internationally for over 3 decades, WLAE Yoga helped pioneer the modern-day yoga movement. With her clear and authentic instruction set against spectacular scenic backdrops and uplifting music, WLAE makes yoga easily accessible and enjoyable for people of all backgrounds and experience levels.
Sundays at 6:30 a.m.
So it all starts with this, talking.
I mean, that's the reason I wrote the book.
You know, we're still making history.
I'm Holly Jackson. Join us as we bring you powerful stories from both new and established Southern authors.